Hey guys, it's the Magnifical, and we're finally halfway done with 2020. It's been a great year so far, which is something I would say if I was a liar, but I'm not, and it has sucked dick. This will be a little different from my normal videos. Normally it's like reaction stuff, but over the last like week or so, I put together a timeline because lately I've been wondering, how bad has 2020 been? And, like I wanted to know all the horrible things that has really happened, and to remind everyone how this has been the worst year, at least that I can think of, and it's gonna hoping that it gets better towards the end. But anyway, so here's my timeline that I created, just wrapping everything up. So let's get right into it. So right at the beginning of 2020, on January 3rd, we had a US drone strike that killed a top Iranian security intelligence commander in Baghdad, and we thought it would be the beginning of World War III. Thankfully, it wasn't. Literally the day afterwards, Australia decides to catch on fire, and on January 5th, Iran pulls out of a 2015 nuclear deal and will not limit its uranium enrichment. On January 27, on January 7th, Puerto Rico suffers from a 6.4 magnitude earthquake, which was the largest in the last century. Um, you guys still with me? We just got through the first week of 2020. Let's continue. Okay, January 8th was an interesting day. First, Iran fires back and hit some American troops in Iraq in retaliation. The Ukraine Boeing 737-800 crashes just after takeoff in Iran and kills 176 people. Finally, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle decide to step out of the royal family. Now for some good news. On January 11th, Diego, the 100-year-old tortoise, retires after saving his species by being an absolute Chad and begging everything he could. On January 16th, Trump's impeachment trial begins. Remember when that was a thing? On January 22nd, China puts Wuhan under lockdown due to coronavirus because there had been 500 ill and 17 dead. Too bad they hadn't done it sooner. January 23rd, the Harvey Weinstein trial occurs with Annabelle Kiora testifying that she'd been raped by Weinstein 25 years ago. This helped spark the Me Too. This helped spark the hashtag Me Too movement. And on January 25th, severe rainstorms caused landslide and flooding in Brazil, which killed 30 people. On January 26th, Kobe Bryant, his 13-year-old daughter Gianna Bryant, and 7 other people died in a helicopter crash. Rest in peace. On January 29th, there are over 7,700 confirmed cases of coronavirus in China and 170 deaths. And the next day, the World Health Organization declares it a public health emergency of international concern in a meeting in Geneva. Finally, on January 31st, the UK formally withdraws from the EU, also known as Brexit. And with that, we're done with the first month. Here we go, guys, now into February. On February on February 1st, locusts swarm East Africa and lead to Somalia declaring this a national emergency and the largest in 25 years. Seems like now we have to deal with more plagues. On February 5th, the US Senate votes to acquit Trump of charges of abuse of power and obstruction of Congress in a very close vote. The next day, the US had its first CV-related death. Now we're in the end games, guys. On February 9th, there's a suspected militant attack and kills at least 30 people, many while sleeping in their cars in Auno, northeastern Nigeria, kidnapping women and children too. On February 10th, Australia experiences some heavy rainfall, helping to end some of their fires. They had 46 million acres of land burned, over a billion animals killed, and 34 people killed, making it one of the worst bushfire seasons ever. On February 14th, also known as Valentine's Day, more than 800,000 people were displaced from their homes in northwestern Syria because of an assault by Syrian pro-government forces on the last rebel stronghold. On a lighter and happier note, it was also the day that me and my girlfriend first said "I love you" to each other, so that's what I'm gonna think about it about, not the Syria situation. Anyway, back to the depressing stuff. On February 18th, the Boy Scouts of America filed for bankruptcy after hundreds of sexual abuse lawsuits. Who would have thought that having random adults take your kids to the woods could have ended so badly? On February 19th, a German gunman opened fires in a bar in Hanau, Germany, which killed 9 people and was seemingly a racially motivated attack. On February 23rd, the first major CV outbreak occurred in Europe, in Italy, with 152 cases and 3 deaths. This leads to emergency measures in the lockdown of 10 towns in Lombardy. On February 24th, Weinstein was found guilty, thank God. On February 25th, Iran is the next CV hotspot with 95 recorded cases and 11 deaths. On February 26th, Saudi Arabia bars pilgrims from accessing the religious site of Mecca and Medina because of CV fears for the first time in living memory. On February 29th, the US and the Taliban signed a deal to end an 18-year war in Afghanistan where the US and the NATO troops will withdraw in 14 months if the deal is kept. So now we're a third of the way through. On March 1st, New York has its first case of coronavirus from a healthcare worker returning from Iran. On March 2nd, Putin proposes a constitutional amendment that bans gay marriage. So if you're gay, feel free to come to the US. We're much more tolerant here, at least. You can get married. On March 3rd, the World Bank gives $12 billion to aid developing countries in the midst of CV. On March 9th, Italy announces that it will be locking down the country due to the coronavirus after 10,040 cases and 630 deaths. On March 10th, the Russian lower house of parliament passes legislation to allow Vladimir Putin to hold office of president for life. That doesn't reek of corruption at all. This man has been running Russia for like 2 decades now, so let's just let him live for the rest of his life as president. On March 11th, coronavirus is officially declared a pandemic by the World Health Organization after 121,564 cases and 4,373 deaths. Also, Weinstein is charged with 23 years in prison, where hopefully he'll spend the rest of his life there. On March 12th, Trump bans travel with 26 European countries, and the next day it bans it with the UK and Ireland. On March 13th, Trump declares a national emergency and frees up $50 billion to fighting coronavirus. On March 16th, France orders a national lockdown and the UN starts recommending social distancing. On the 17th, the EU announces a 30-day travel ban. On the 19th, the entire state of California is ordered to stay at home after 910 cases. On the 22nd, India puts 1 billion people under a daytime curfew to curb it. On the 23rd, New York is confirmed as the center of the pandemic in the US with over 20,000 cases and 157 deaths. On the 24th, Japan announces that the 2020 Olympics will be postponed because of this, unfortunately. On the 26th, the US cases of coronavirus passes all other countries with almost 82,000 cases and almost 1,200 deaths. On the 27th, Trump signs a $2.2 trillion stimulus package, making it the largest in history. On the 29th, Anthony Fauci warns that the US could suffer from 100 to 200,000 deaths due to this. On the 30th, Virginia, Maryland, Arizona, and Florida issues lockdowns, and with that, we are halfway done with this video. We still have 3 more months to go. Yay! And now we're into April, and if you've been living at all, you know how bad things get in April. So anyway, if you're still here, just, friendly reminder, leave a like, subscribe. I put a lot of work into this video. I wrote a script for the first time forever. It has over 2,000 words because, 2020 has been such a shit show so far. So, it'd be greatly appreciated. Share the video with your friends. Anyway, back to what you're here for. On April 2nd, we passed 1 million cases of coronavirus worldwide and 50,000 deaths. Now, a lot of places in the US are under lockdown in hopes of curbing it. On April 6th, Nadia the tiger gets infected and was the first human-to-cat transmission. Also, the US passed 10,000 deaths, with almost half of them being in New York. On the 8th, the World Trade Organization predicts a drop in global trade greater than in 2008, between 13 and 22% in 2020. Also, Bernie drops out of the election, making this upcoming election be a battle between Trump and Biden, both in their 70s, both close to senile. On the 12th, major oil companies agreed to the largest drop in production history to stabilize world prices. So one good thing out of this was how cheap gas has been lately, if you've noticed. On April 13th, New York passes 10,000 cases of coronavirus. On April 16th, 22 million Americans have filed for unemployment, with a quarter of that in the last week. On the 17th, the World Health Organization warns that Africa could be the next epicenter of the pandemic. On the 18th, Canada suffers its worst modern mass shooting with 18 deaths. On the 19th, the US has close to 750,000 confirmed cases and over 40,000 deaths. In light of that, the next day, Georgia, Tennessee, and South Carolina decided that now is a good time to ease up on coronavirus restrictions. On the 21st, Trump announces a 60-day ban on the most green cards for the US. On the 22nd, Sudan bans female genital mutilation, which is a huge step for women over there, and they've made it now a criminal offense. No more female circumcision, which is a horrible practice. On April 23rd, Trump suggests injecting disinfectants to combat CV, which I guess could work because you can't get it if you're dead. That's, true. On the 28th, Department of Defense decides to release three declassified videos of possible UFOs from 2004 to 2015. God damn it, can we get a break? For first a plague, now aliens. 2020, can you chill out for like 5 minutes? Also, I understand that there's a strong possibility that this is just some random unidentified flying object, probably from a different country, but you never know. Finally, now we're on to May, okay? We're getting there. We're almost all caught up. So starting off with May 1st, Elon decides to tweet how Tesla stock prices are too high. Keep in mind that this is his company and the stock value ends up dropping by 10%. I'm no businessman or psychic, so I'm just curious on what this mad lad is thinking about, because that's a lot of money to be just dropped over a tweet, especially when it's your company. And then 3 days later, on May 4th, this man decides to name his newborn child a name that me and everyone else in the world, at least at the time, didn't know how to pronounce. I still don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not going to even try. I'll just post it up here and stuff, and you guys can try in the comments on how you think it's pronounced. Anyway, same day, world leaders pledge $8 billion to finding a vaccine for coronavirus. On May 5th, we hit 3.5 million cases in the world. On May 7th, unemployment reaches 33 million people, or about 20% of the workforce, which is the lowest in half a century. On May 10th, we hit 4 million cases and more than 270,000 deaths. On May 13th, every country in Africa has been infected with coronavirus. On May 19th, a study comes out saying that greenhouse gas emissions had dropped by about 17% since the world went on lockdown, so, silver lining, I guess. On the 20th, the World Health Organization reported that the most new cases in a single day was 107,000. Obviously, this has been beaten multiple times over. On May 25th, George Floyd was killed. He had been a victim of police brutality, and for the next few days, rioting ensued and are still taking place. It sparked the whole Black Lives Matter movement again. There's been many violent protests, which I personally don't support. I do support the peaceful protests. And the initial rioting and looting has been projected to cost around $25 million in damages. On May 30th, SpaceX Falcon 9 launches, making them the first private company to launch astronauts into space. I personally actually watched it on the news go up. It was actually really cool to see, and all the astronauts had these really cool outfits. On June 1st, Trump employs the military to quell the protesters. On June 3rd, the former police officers are charged in connection with the deaths of George Floyd. Derek Chauvin is charged with second-degree murder. That's the man who actually had his knee on George's neck. On June 7th, the death toll of coronavirus worldwide passes 400,000 and hits almost 7 million cases worldwide. On June 8th, the US officially goes into a recession. On June 17th, the first major breakthrough in treating coronavirus occurs using dexamethasone, I think it's pronounced. On June 18th, death tolls passed 450,000 with almost 8.5 million confirmed cases. On June 22nd, New York begins phase 2. On June 25th, the Center of Disease Control estimates that 20 million people have been infected, which is around 10 times higher than the current amount of confirmed cases. Good thing about that is that if it's true, then that makes the death rate about 0.2%, so that's not as bad. On June 27th, India suffers from a swarm of locusts and is dubbed Swarmageddon. So another plague is occurring and stuff. What's next? The firstborn sons of everyone will perish, because I can't have that going. I'm a firstborn son. On June 28th, the global death toll passes 500,000. Thankfully, June was not as eventful, and hopefully the rest of the year is better. Obviously, I couldn't cover every single thing that happened, but I tried to cover as much as possible. I tried to keep this video as fast-paced as possible, because, it would have been very long. I had like 6, 7 sheets of paper just as a timeline and stuff here. Try to do as much editing and make it nice as possible. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, it'd be much appreciated. Leave a like, subscribe, tell your friends, share the video, hit that notification bell, um, and most of all, just everyone stay safe. Hopefully things get better. Hopefully this year gets better. Just remember you're not alone, and I hope you have a great day and happy 4th of July.